off with some of these to be on the tablet. So on the left-hand side, you've got F1, F2, F3. Programmable, however, the defaults are set, F1 being the internet, F2 being camera application, and F3 being the keyboard. If I hit F3, it will pull up the keyboard. It's a touch screen device. That's one way that you can get to the keyboard. Way, if I close it down, it's a little TC input panel button on the taskbar. I like the F3 button because sometimes if you have an application open, you can't see the taskbar. And as a result, this button down here is not available for you. So if you just hit the F3 button, it's going to pull up the keyboard. That back down. The F2 brings up the camera application. I'm not going to go too much into that. It's pretty self-explanatory. You open it up. It's got quite a few functions in there. You can record video, you can play video, you can actually take GPS coordinated pictures if you like. Application mainly for taking pictures of problems or potential anything in the field that I want to relay back to the office. The Trimble Field Link software has the ability to put pictures into a report and also assign coordinates, an X, Y, and Z coordinate to that report, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. About that is if you want to, you can attach that report, the picture, to an RFI or possibly even a change order, or maybe you want to bring it back to the BIM coordination meeting and be able to have a picture as well as some coordinates. So I'll show you how to do that in just a little bit here, but again, F2 is going to be your camera. You can also click here, there's a desktop shortcut. Again, you can double click that, the camera. But I'll let you guys play around with that one on your own time. It's a pretty nice little camera feature, and like I say, take a lot of pictures and put them in reports. It'll save you a lot of time and energy to explain something. The green power button, press it and hold it for just a second. It will actually put the tablet to sleep. You're going to go ahead and press it and hold it again. I'll use that when you're going to lunch or on a break or something like that. And hold it forever and shut the tablet down that way. That is not recommended. It is a Windows-based laptop computer. It just happens to be a little bit raised with a touch screen. Just like you wouldn't take your laptop computer or your desktop computer and hold down the power button. That with this. I know my IT department gets a little upset with me when I do it on my laptop. So just use it for a mode, and if you want to shut the tablet down, go to the little button, or your little Windows button, and then go to shut down like you normally would your laptop or your desktop computer. On the side, we've got two buttons. One of them's got a little red dot on it. That's kind of like an enter button, or if you're in the camera application, you can press that to take a picture. The button kind of helps you scroll through some scroll bars. You can navigate with it a little bit. However, it's a bit finicky. Sometimes it works in some applications and sometimes it doesn't. So try it. If it doesn't work, it's a Windows compatibility thing. I'm not. It works 100% of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. So you'll just have to use the touch screen and navigate that way. That little with the red dot on it, I use that all the time. I can stake points. I can store nearest or store next with that button, and then also, like I say, record data, which is kind of nice when you're holding onto the tablet. You've got your inverted rod all leveled up. You don't have to remove your hand and potentially get out of level. You can just hit that button with your thumb. The desktop itself, again, it's Windows 7, so you've got your taskbar. Bottom in the right hand, you've got your time and date. You've got your battery. This is the battery for the tablet itself. I will in the software how you can check the instrument battery, but this is going to be your tablet right here. There are 2 batteries in it, so combination of the 2 gets me 91% remaining battery life. The menu, or excuse me, the main file folder, mine says A-STOT, yours might say your particular company that you're with. Inside here, though, if I double-click on that, to my documents, that is where our software is going to look for the files that you load onto the tablet. The .dfl files, which is the point file, and the .wg or .dxf file, which is going to be your CAD background. So in this one, you've got unless you've done an export or a report yet, is only going to probably show you jobs and images. At a minimum, there will be jobs there. Inside the jobs, I have all my clients. You're going to have all the projects that you may be working on. Hospital, shopping mall, high school, center, whatever the heck it may be, that's where all your files are going to be. To get files onto, if I drag window to the left, Windows has the functionality where it will just populate the left-hand side of my screen with that particular window, at which point now I can insert a flash drive into one of the USB plugs on the bottom and to open files. I'm going to open all the files that happen to be on my thumb drive. It's just a matter of dragging and dropping the one file to the appropriate folder that you want it to go in. And you've just transferred your files from whatever device it happens to be, whether it's a thumb drive or it's a internet site as well. If Wi-Fi access on the site, this could just as easily be my went to me. It's being a key here, and I went to sign in. You could sign into your own type of email you wanted to, and then you could send the files as an attachment. So you have the close proximity of the job site in the office. You can email files to the tablet or use a thumb drive. However you want to get the files on the tablet is completely up to you. It's just a matter of dragging and dropping them into the appropriate folder that you want them to be. So I'll close these guys down because I've transferred the files over. And again, the thumb drive, you have 2 thumb or USB plugs on the bottom. One of them is going to house your radio. The other one is going to be left open for, again, using the thumb drive. Also, if you have a lot of data typing to do on the tablet, you can plug in a mouse, a USB mouse, and also a USB keyboard when you're done to plug that radio back in before you connect up to the robot. Otherwise, it's not going to connect. Also, I'm sorry, there's a headphones jack. There's also a microphones jack as well. For whatever reason, if you wanted to plug in headphones or a microphone, you've got that ability. They sell a docking station for this thing. If you wanted to drop the tablet into a docking station that permanently is affixed to a mouse or keyboard and a computer monitor functionality as well. But quite you're going to be using this thing to lay out points in the field. I would fit for that purpose only. The more applications and things you load onto this thing, the slower it is going to run. It only has a 1 gigabyte of RAM. And, with larger files and additional applications and programs and things running on it, tends to bog it down. So, keep the files as small as you can, and try to avoid putting things like iTunes. It's got the headphones. I wouldn't put it on there. Wi-Fi connection, again, some of those Wi-Fi cards have a USB plug. If your job does not have a Wi-Fi connection, you could aftermarket, get some Wi-Fi connections, and be able to transfer files via email as opposed to having to use a thumb drive every time. So a lot of functionality, the same functionality basically that a laptop computer has, just how you want to use it and how you as your company decides you want to transfer those files back and forth. All right, I've got my thumb drive plugged in. One of the habits that I do is this little, I get in the habit of ejecting that thumb drive safely. The reason being is, and Windows 7 is a lot better with this as far as remembering it if you unplug it and plug it back in without doing this, but Windows XP was a little finicky in the sense that sometimes you would go ahead and pull it out and then you'd stick it back in and it wouldn't recognize it. Well, get in the habit of safely removing it. That way if I happen to grab the wrong file, I don't start my tablet in case it doesn't recognize the thumb drive the second time I stick it back in. So just kind of some housekeeping type stuff that I've gotten in the habit of. Tablet's the end of the world. It just takes a little bit of extra time that you would be grabbing. Well, this is a lot of clicks. I got to double click here, and then I've got to click on my documents, and then I've got to double click on Field Link. Rather than go through that every time, I've created a shortcut right down here. So I double click on that. It takes me straight to my jobs, reports, exports, and images. As well, I've got Trimble Field Link for MEP software application here. That's a desktop shortcut. Again, anything on a desktop, it'll be a two-click. I actually drug that down to my taskbar. So anything on the taskbar is going to be a one-click. Shortcut here. Looks very similar to the first one as far as the picture goes, but this one is the Trimble Field Link job file converter. If you have an existing MEP or CNX, and I'll actually double-click on it and open it up for you. An existing CNX or MEP file, and I want to convert that to a .tfl file or Trimble Field Link file. It won't be the MEP or the CNX. You have to convert it. This is something that you can put on your computer. So it's free to download. Just go to trimble.com/BCIM, and you can download this, put it on your CAD computer. Then you can then guys in the field a .tfl and a .dwg, for example, and not have to make them worry about connecting and converting and so on and so forth. So the nice thing about this is if you have an existing file that you don't want to redo in CAD, you do not have to. You can just convert it. The tablet will be able to use it, and you'll be ready to go. Hitting Browse, navigating to the folder that that particular file happens to be in, and go on, and then once you've populated that, then you can say, okay, I want to put it in this particular folder. It will default to the same one that you were just in, but we do give you the option to put it in a different folder if you choose to do so. So convert, it says it's been converted, and then now you've got a TFL file that you can use. So again, if you put this on your CAD computer, you can remove this shortcut from the tablet itself, so that way there's no confusion between the two. But I put the shortcut at the bottom on the taskbar, so it's a one-click application to launch, one click to launch the application. This is a touch screen and doesn't have a mouse. How do you right-click? All right. Well, you do have that option. What you need to do is press and hold on the screen, and it will circle. Press brings up a circle. As soon as I release, it brings up my right-click menu. And of course, the right-click menu is going to be per what you happen to be clicking on. If I were to click on a shortcut, and give me some different options. Okay, so right-click is going to be a press and hold until that circle shows up, and then you can release, and then now it gives you your right-click option. So one thing I'll say about the touch screen, it is ruggedized. Okay, it's pretty tough. You can hear me pounding on it. It takes a little bit to get used to. So be firm with it. Don't do what I just did by completely pulverizing it with the stylus, but be firm with it, and you'll get the hang of it quickly. The more you use it, the quicker. It just takes a little bit of getting used to, because it's a little bit not sensitive as maybe some of the touch screens on some of the cell phones, so because it is ruggedized. Enough about the tablet pieces, so on and so forth. The software. I'm going to get a shortcut on the taskbar and launch my application. And a splash screen, Trimble Field Link for MEP, starts loading that up. I have some little graphic grounds on here, and I believe it's an issue with WebEx. So you can see that kind of hatch pattern there covering up some things, but I'll explain what some are getting covered up as we get to them. Right, see a few buttons on the upper right. There's the main icon button there on the upper left. That happens to be the new button. If I click that, it puts up all of our ribbons. Okay, Trimble Field Link software, we've gone with ribbons. Some of you may be familiar with them with AutoCAD, or Microsoft Office products have gone with some ribbons. Basically, it's just a compilation of tool buttons that decided are similar. All right, I'm not going to say much more about it than that, but they're ribbons under, and I'll go through all of these, but I just kind of want to give you a quick kind of overview. The model viewer doesn't have any ribbons. The model viewer is just that. It allows you to view your model. Kind of a double-edged sword. I'm going back to that and talk about it in a little bit. But reports, those are the reports that I was talking about, and settings. Settings actually is not a toolbar. It actually brings you into units and format, setup and layout, and then the next tab that you can't see says contact information. If I click on that one, that's pretty much the easiest one that I can talk about. It's simply your information on the left and your distributor's information on the right, whether that be QuickPen, Trimble, or whoever you bought the software and software from. Pop that. On there right now, the phone number. The 0 number, that is my cell phone. By all means, write that down. Give a call if you like. Training. I'm trained about 3 weeks out of the month, so a lot of times I'm unable to answer my phone between 8 and 4. However, I do return messages as quickly as I can. Email as well. Send me an email if you have a specific question. I can hopefully email you back some instructions. First do this, then do that. The 303 number back under phone, that's tech support. I would put tech support's number in the tablet. That way, if you don't have the salesperson's card or my number or my email, you can, you don't have it plugged into your phone, tech support a call, get your name on the call log, and they'll give you a call back. So contact information, explanatory, it turns boxes from gray to white. I can click on, for example, if I click under Company Acme, as I click on that box, it brings up the keyboard. This is the Trimble Field Link keyboard. You can change the name of your company if you choose to do so. Tell it OK. Once you've populated all your boxes with the appropriate information, go ahead and hit lock and you're done. Okay, it remembers the information. You don't have to do this. As far as operator under the owner, if you've got a couple different guys running this machine, you may want to leave that blank. If you don't, they're going to have to change it every time that a different person is working on it. Not the end of the world, just something to keep in mind. You want to change that out. Unit format is how you want to view the CAD data. It will basically round things up. For example, right now we've got feet and inches set to a 1/16 of an inch. The meters you can, even if the CAD drawing was designed in inches and you want to see what it is in meters, you can switch it over. It just changes the data. It doesn't modify it. It just allows you to see it differently. Put it on feet and inches down to a 1/16 of an inch. But it's up to you what you want to put it on. The degrees, minutes, and seconds, and gons. Over in Europe, we're not there, so I'm leaving it on degrees, minutes, and seconds. quarter, X, Y, Z. That's going to be how it comes out of CAD, easting, and zenith. Careful with the northern, easting, and zenith. Don't directly translate over to X, Y, and Z. And what I mean by that is if there's a surveyor on the job site who says, I've got a control point over here and I can get you the northing and easting on it. Well, you plug that into the tablet, you get some undesired results. So, well, I'm using CAD and we use X, Y, Z. If you can convert for me, that would be great. If not, thanks, but no thanks. It can really goof you up. But X, Y, and Z, that's where I'm going to leave it because that's where my data is coming out of CAD. And it's have apples compared to apples and oranges compared to oranges. So it helps you troubleshoot later on down the road if you run into a predicament. Temperature, Fahrenheit, Celsius, pressure. All I'm going to say about this is the robot has a built-in barometer. It measures the atmospheric pressure. You can't do anything with this. It's just something that the robot does. We do have the option to punch in the temperature, which I believe you had that option as well on the Nomad. So I'm not going to go into that one. You can set it, I believe, is mercury, millimeters of mercury, inches of mercury. Again, it doesn't really matter how you set it because you can't really do anything with it. And the language, English or German. Unless you speak Dutch or German and know the words for exit or Dutch, I'd leave it on English. And about that one. So, last button, setup and layout. This is where your tolerances are. Okay, this is how accurate you lay that point out that was designed in CAD. From an inch all the way down to a 1/16 of an inch. Laying out some work in a trench, and I just need to be close. I'm going to set my tolerances to an inch. If I've got a 3 coming up inside of a 2x4 wall, I'm probably going to dial my tolerances down to an 1/8 inch. And keep it, this is, so if I'm a 1/16 of an inch to one and a 1/16 of an inch to the other, I'm going to get my 1/8 inch tolerance set to. A little bit at 1/2 inch, again, you know, that's something you may need to adjust throughout your workday, depending on what particular point you're out and accurate original design CAD it needs to be. Pretty much the same thing, the same options, although with vertical tolerance you have the option right here. Ignore, if larger than, and then you can set that particular points on a level. And it doesn't really matter if the floor is uneven. You just want to lay these points out based on their X, Y. Hand deck or whatever it happens to be, or the plywood has some deflection, and you just want to get the points out and you're not too worried about the Z or the elevation. Go ahead and check ignore if larger than. I believe you had this option in the Nomad as well. Set it accordingly. Is pertaining to the vertical tolerance, not the horizontal. Horizontal is always going to be on and set per what you want to work at. Buttons. Open mark. And just kind of convenience buttons. I like to use benchmarking. Depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't, but I like to have this button checked. It's just a good habit to get into. Level telescope after visual layout. What we'll do is, let's say you're laying out some points with the laser on the ceiling. You're done and you want to go back to the prism. It will simply just level that telescope out so it's not pointing up at the ceiling anymore. So you don't have to then, when you use your joystick to level, it will automatically do that for you. To the robot, and I've got to at least the open benchmark after instruments. Basically, after I shoot in my control points and I say accept, it's going to take me to the benchmark option, and I'll show that to you when we get to that point. The button clear out flags. If I hit that, that's basically erasing all the data that I just did. So with that one, unless you want to redo all the morning's work or the day's work or the entire project's work, this one alone, so I'm going to tell it no. I'm going to hit back to the main menu. Again, it's this little button up in the left-hand corner, and it was under settings. Okay, any questions about that? Anything to the settings? No? Okay. What I'm going to talk about, in the upper-hand corner, we've got 4 buttons. The software program, okay, I don't want to exit it, so I'm going to tell it no. At least gives you a warning. A little or underscore basically minimizes it. If I need to get back to my desktop for whatever reason, I can hit that button. Forget that I have it open. You can see kind of down here, Windows 7 highlights that application that happens to be open. If I forget, though, and I Trimble Field Link for MEP shortcut and I double-click on it, it's going to say this. You're already running this program, which is a nice feature because I don't want to lay out a bunch of points in one application or window and then a bunch of different points in another. That would be the end of the world. I just have to go through the trouble of transferring the data from the one file to the other. So to do that, it's a little bit says, oh yeah, I've already got it open, so I need to open it back up. Mark button in the upper right, that's about information. It tells you what version you're running. And you're all running 1.2.0.65, and then it tells you your support expiration date and your tablet serial number, and that's about it. That's just a little bit of information, not a whole lot, but that's what the question mark does. And then the 4th button, which is a little bit to see because of that graphic glitch there, but that's your robot or your instrument control panel. So if I were to click on that one, it takes me into all of the functionality of connecting to and controlling the robot. I'm not just yet. I just wanted you to see what you can do with some of these things. A lot of these buttons are similar to the Nomad. The graphics might be a little bit different, but a lot of it probably looks very familiar. I'm going to close that down, though. And back to the main menu, which is the upper left-hand button, that little Trimble icon. Continue from the right to the left. My next one is reports. You've got 3 options. You can do daily layout summary. If I click on that one, it'll let me do a report for how many points I laid out that day, that per hour. Guys in the field say, oh no, now they're really going to keep tabs on me, but it isn't the end of the world. I actually like this because you guys are Nomad users, so you're already going to be hopefully somewhat proficient, and this really kind of helps quantify the amount of points that you're laying out and how accurate you're laying them out. Up at it says date. That's a little bit covered up, but you can see the date in there. If I click on that one, it's going to go calendar. It's going to take a date. Well, any array means I didn't shoot any points out that day, so as you can see, I don't lay out a lot of points, but I do once in a while. So in this case, I'm going to click on the date 2/2012. I've got the option to click on that notes box. If I click inside of there, it pulls up my keyboard again. And on this particular day, I happen to be training, so I'm going to add in anything that you want to. Training, practice, it was raining today, whatever you type in here that is going to be associated with that report, or you can leave it blank as well. Matter hitting save. What it does, it'll put it into a PDF type format. It may give me a warning that this file already exists. No, it didn't. So, and it just gives me a PDF. All right. Where's that PDF? Well, if I go to the upper right and minimize, and this is my shortcut down here, under reports. So if I click under reports, here's my daily summary reports, and be this over a little bit. It's going to do a report that I just laid out. It just gives it a very generic name with the date associated with it, which is actually pretty handy. So back into my application, we can take a look at the PDF report. So what it's telling me is that the date, the time, the date of the layout, it gives me my contractor. So again, that's important to fill that out because it'll populate your report with your name. And then it lets you know what job you happen to be working on. You see notes there was training, a little bit more, number of points that I laid out, how long it took me. I averaged 32 points an hour. That was about session 1, and then I've got a summary. I was 7 points were in 100% tolerance horizontally. My vertical tolerance, how many points were within that, so forth. So it's kind of a handy little report. It does have some fine print there that says periods of inactivity of 15 minutes or greater are excluded from layout time. So it's not dinging you for your lunch break or your coffee break or so on and so forth. Or maybe you talk to the foreman for a little while and it won't. When you stop and start again, it'll do a layout session 1, session 2, session 3, so on and so forth. I only have one session here, so you don't see that. But down towards the bottom, it tells you the point name, the description, your horizontal and your delta vertical. So it's kind of a handy little daily report. Some supervisors want to see it, some don't care. It's completely up to you. But that's how you do it. It's pretty easy to create that report. Back to the main menu and back to reports. We've got deviations. It creates a .csv file or comma-separated value. That can be opened in Microsoft Excel or other spreadsheet software applications. Again, you've got the date up at the top, but this one allows you to do a start date and an end date, or you could simply select all. So if I select all, it just says, okay, you started this project or this particular file on 4/3 and you ended it on 4/9. As far as under the include, you've got some check mark boxes. I keep all of those checked. If someone wants this report, I'd rather give them too much information than not enough. So I'm going to leave all of those checked and then just hit save. Mine already exists because I've already created this one. I'm just going to override it. It pulls up this comma-separated values or like an Excel spreadsheet and tells you the name of the point, the description, the layer, the X, the Y, and the Z. So those first 5 or 6 columns are add data. Okay. If I scroll to the right, 3 columns are going to be your layout data, where you actually laid that point out. So it's giving you some pretty finite detail as far as what section that point was. You laid it out, whether you were perfect or whether you were not. So some of them have got perfect on the X and Y with the 0, 0. I can tell you that those were laid out with the laser. So again, what you would want this for, but it's there if you need it, is the layout. The last field report is my favorite. This is the one that allows you to assign a picture and XYZ coordinate to the particular report you're filing. So let's say, for example, I want to take a picture of a collision that happened to be between electrical and ductwork. If I go to the job site, I could flip it into my camera application, take a picture of that, and just come back into this report, populate that picture into this report. If I set up on the job site with my robot, I could include a position, I could take a measurement, it would give me the X, Y, and Z, and then I could hit save and save it as a PDF. I can go and then forward that on or print that out or whatever I need to do. So to start at the top, you can't see it, but it says name. If I click box, this is the name of the file. All right. Again, probably name it something that makes sense to you. I one dog because I happen to have a picture of my dog in here that I'm going to populate this report. All right. Next. All right. His name's Bella. All right. You can call this thing anything you want to, but call this report Bella. And I can say picture. Now, if I click in here, it doesn't do anything because the picture's associated with it just yet. I can hit the camera button, and that'll pull up our camera, but more often than not, I'm taking pictures throughout the day, and I want to go back to where those files are located, so I'm just going to hit that little file button, and it'll open where location may happen to be. So I have to scroll back a couple times to basically get to my main users panel, and then you're going to scroll down to my pictures. And you got pictures, music, just like you would under My Documents. Go to Pictures, and that shows all the pictures that I've taken. So you can see some of these photos in here of just things that I've done. But if I go to the bottom, well, there's my dog Bella. All right, so I say, okay, I'm going to put Bella's picture in there. And if I had the robot, and if the robot knew where he was on the job site, I could say include position and tell it to measure, but it says I need to set up the instrument first. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit save. Just create a report. Obviously, it's not anything that has to do with the construction site, but it's a picture of my dog, and it's a little bit blurry, but there it is. So again, your contractor, your basic building. Now, under the text, you see it says Bella right here. It would all mean X, Y, and Z. That's nice because if you're in the BIM factory model, you can punch in those coordinates and fly right to where that particular picture is talking about. So this is a really great tool, again, if you need to do an RFI, if you need to do a change order, or otherwise communicate something to either the supervisors or the GC or whoever. And you can add more than one picture too. So I could go in and I could add another picture to it, and this picture of the robot to it. I just hit save. It's going to override it. Got a couple pictures associated with that particular report, and then you can add quite. Haven't maxed it out yet, but I think I've done at least 4 or 5 in there. So there's the field reports again. Favorite, but you've got layout deviations and layout summary as well. Do you guys have any questions about those particular reports? No? Tools. The next one over. You compute and unit conversion. Conversion is you can convert different units, feet and inches, centimeters, meters. You can convert feet to centimeters, however you want to do it. The length. All right. So when this one, they give me a cut sheet, and it happens to be in centimeters. So I can click on that centimeters box, and I this particular gear opening or whatever the heck it is has to be 35 centimeters. All right. Well, how many inches is that? I tell it, okay, it's 7 3/4 inches. Okay, or it's 1.148 feet, or it's 0.383 yards. Okay, so it's kind of a nice little feature when you're converting centimeters to inches, so on and so forth. Again, you're not going to use it every day, but when you need it, it's nice to have. That's the tab in the middle. Use this one for square centimeters to square yards, or however you want to do it. I used it for basement. I put some carpet in, and I had 122 square feet. So if I click on the square feet box, 100 square feet, how many square yards that was, because Home Depot doesn't sell it in square feet. They sell carpet in square yards. So I put 122 feet. So I went to the guy and I said, I need 13.556 square yards. So little things like that, acres, square miles, conversions, so on and so forth. So however you want to use this, you may not use it every day, but it's nice to have it when you need it. And the last tab that you can't see is volume. So let's do cubic feet to cubic yards. I like that because it's easier for me to figure out cubic feet, but again, I want to order up some concrete, I need to order cubic yards. So if I click feet and I say I need to order 27 cubic feet, it's going to tell me that's 1 cubic yard. Okay, it's a pretty simple one, but you can imagine if you've got 22 cubic feet, it's a little bit harder to figure out, 4.519 cubic yards. So you guys get the idea. It's nice to have when you need it, and again, it's under Tools and Unit Conversion. The other one under Tools I use religiously is compute. I use this thing every day. We get a glimpse of what my plan looks like on the left-hand side. If I hit zoom dense, I'll bring it up a little bit closer. We've got distance tab, angle tab, and the one that you can't see is the area tab. Okay, so excuse me, I can see separate things. I have a checks and balances. For example, I know that my grid lines here have 24 feet apart, but I want to verify that. So I've got a start point and an end point. I have a start point. Point I picked, color blue, pops on and says now you need to grab an end point. So if I click the next one over, it tells me that point, and it tells me that the distance between the 2 points is 24 feet. That's what I expected. If any other dimension than that, maybe I need to give somebody a phone call and say something's not jiving. Okay. The thing about this is you can associate real field conditions with your CAD file. Pull a tape on a couple of columns, so you're either right or you're wrong. That one too. I use this one a lot. With the new software, it wants you to shoot your control points in with an angle relationship to where the robot is at 45 degrees and then up to 135 degrees. Okay? What I mean by that is when I set a robot up on the job site, I want it to be 90 degrees plus or minus 45 degrees. If I'm not, it won't let me shoot in my control points. It just tells you I need better angles to work with if you want to set me up on the job site. Now, it doesn't actually say that, but that's what it means. Okay? So, before you even set the robot up in a bad spot, I come to the tools in the computer here, and I can say, okay, well, I'll set my robot up these columns. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be close. So I can say, all right, point number 2 is going to be the center point of my robot. I set him up down on control point number 24, or somewhere in that close proximity. And one of the control points that I want to shoot is this point, which is 32, and another point that I want to shoot is this one right here, which is control point 21. That's telling me your angle is 26 degrees. I can tell you right now, it's not going to let me do it, right? So I can use this to check things and say, okay, well, maybe I don't want to use that control point. Maybe instead of using control point 32, I clear that one out. And so I'm going to use control point 20. Well, that's a degree angle. That's perfect. It'll let me shoot that in all day long. You kind of check yourself a little bit here. And again, it doesn't have to be obviously sitting exactly on the control point. You can kind of figure out from there, well, if I move it in or over a little bit, I'm going to be within tolerance. So this is kind of a nice little checks and balances so that you don't spend the time leveling that robot up in a tricky location only to find out that the 2 control points that you wanted to shoot in or intended to shoot in give you a good enough angle for the robot to establish itself on the site. So angle in the area, this was just a matter of kind of connecting the dots. So let's say, for example, if I start picking dots here and I want to this corner, as soon as I pick my my first point, it draws a box around the area that I'm trying to lay out, and it tells me the perimeter, it tells me the square foot, to figure out, okay, 576 square feet, maybe I'm on the hook for roping this area off. Well, that I need to grab probably a foot roll of tape because I've got 96 feet that I need to encompass. Maybe I'm on the hook for filling it with 4 inches of gravel or something, so I can click on that depth window and say 4 inches, tell it, and now it tells me, well, okay, you need to put 7.11 yards of gravel. That's how much I need to order. So things like that, you do a lot of math, because what, you know, the job site, you tear off a piece of cardboard and you try and figure out the math that you're trying to do. This will help you set these points up in CAD and then trace them out, you've got some measurements and some pretty cool little things that you can do with this. That I can also undo. Maybe if I pick this one and pick that one, I can say undo, and then I can go back this way. So it's got a pretty decent functionality. Play around with it. A pretty cool little feature. Again, something you're maybe not going to use every single day, but nice to have when you need it. And again, stuff was under Tools, Compute and Unit Conversion. Do you guys have any questions about that particular ribbon?
Nope.
Okay, good deal. Now here's that model viewer that I kind of alluded to earlier. So if I click on the model viewer, this one is neat. It's kind of cool. It allows you to view your model in 3D. However, if you have a 3D model as your background, that's a big CAD file. The bigger, the slower it can potentially cause the tablet to run. So this one's kind of a double-edged sword. I have a very simplistic drawing in here. First, about some of these buttons on the right. Some of them may look very familiar. You've got at the top zoom extents. You've got a zoom window. I can draw a box around an area and zoom into it. I can then further zoom in by hitting the plus. I can also by hitting the minus. Or I can just simply hit zoom extents and get back out to where I need to be. The cog window. When you're in model viewer, if I click on that, this allows you to manage your layers. Okay. Simply unselect everything and close out, turned everything off. Okay, that's a bit extreme. I'm going to click back on that window and say select all, but I don't want to see walls. All right, so I can unselect the walls and it'll walls off. Okay, so I've got some functionality there based on how CAD designs the geometry in this model. It's from CAD. Okay, I actually want to turn my walls back on, so I'm going to go back in here, turn them back on. Next button down, you've got three boxes, a black one, a blue one, and a white one. All right, this allows you to control visibility of your background. Right now, it's white background with the CAD colors of the geometry. Toggle it once to a black background with the original CAD colored geometry. If I hit it a third time, it turns all of the CAD geometry blue and puts a white background. This one is handy if your CAD department likes to draw on a lot of light colors. It's hard to see on the white background. You can override those colors and just turn everything blue. Hit it again. We just go back to where we started with the white background with the original CAD colors. This one's kind of nice if you happen to be down in a basement and it's dark and that white screen is causing your eyes to have to adjust every time you look up. You can simply switch it to the black screen, and so on and so forth. Again, we just get the option to change it. Not too customizable, but there's a couple things there. Down looks like a little Earth with some orbiting type things going around it. That's exactly what it is. It's orbit. Click on that, and pick anywhere in my drawing, I can start pulling up to the point where I can see some 3 dimensions going on. How it doesn't work is convenient as, say, maybe the orbit in AutoCAD or Navisworks or Teclabimsite. So, with that said, I can hit that button all the way down at the bottom, and that just gets me through some preset type views, and quite this is really the only one that I like. It's the Southwest Isometric. It gives you a good idea of what's going on, and from there, if I wanted to, I can click and hit orbit and adjust this thing a little bit. That's going to be more conducive to how I want to see my work. Okay. So the button that I haven't talked about, that renders it. So I can put some rendering on that. At this point, I can use the zoom window to zoom in. You can kind of see what's going on here. I've got an equipment pad, albeit very small. I've got some sleeves, some columns, some pipe with some hangers on it. Okay. Toggle between wireframe and rendering by hitting that marble button there. I can toggle between pan and orbit by hitting the button here. Right in orbit, if If I were to pan, I have to hit the hand, and then I can pan around. Go orbit, and I orbit, and so forth. So just there, again, it cool, but at the same time, the bigger CAD file is, the slower your tablet's going to run. And quite honestly, if I lay some isometric type views and fly through models, I'm going to use Tekla BIM site, pull my model into that, take some pictures, and send those out to the job site as a PDF or what have you. So what the model viewer is, I'm going to switch it back to frame viewer. Next one, I'm actually going to jump collect data and layout data. They're very, very similar. You'll notice setup instrument points and line work, setup points and line work for data and layout data. Layout data also has the button for wall penetrations. It is laser based, though. You have to use the laser to do the wall penetrations. That isn't really something I can demonstrate because you really can't see the office, my office, and the laser in here. But I'll let you guys play with that one. I'll open it up. You can see what it looks like. So I'm not going to let me do it. It basically wants you to enter in 2 points. So if you're doing wall penetrations, you may already be familiar with this, but if you're not, you basically create 2 points, one on either side of the wall. The laser will find the center line of those 2 points. It will then take a measure from where it actually hits the wall and adjust accordingly, and then put that point exactly where that wall penetration needs to be. Again, I don't really do it justice by not demonstrating it, so I apologize on that account. But layout and collect data, very, very similar. For it to work, you have to set the robot up and shoot in your control points. Okay, and that's basically what setup instrument means. I'm not just yet. I'm going to cover those 2 guys last. Jobs. Okay, this is import and export. Manage is going to be how you own a job or move to another. Import would be how you get your CAD background. Export would be the option of, click on that, exporting a CAD DD file or points file. The points is covered up a little bit. The points, the middle tab, and then the tab all the way over to the right that you can't see at all, measurements. That we really use. CAD can take their own measurements. This is going to be, I want to get back to the CAD department. For example, I just laid out a whole bunch of points. I want to export that CAD file back, or DWG back to the CAD department, so they can reference that into their working model, make adjustments they need to, and there's your as-built drawing. So in order to do a CAD file export, it's a matter of giving it a name. So I like to give it the day's date. So 5/7/17 -12. There's one name. Tell it okay. Choose this button, that blue button, which is the next one down. I give all layers back to CAD. I'd rather give them too much than not enough. And just like I can turn layers on and off in the tablet, they can just as easily turn layers on and off on their CAD program. For layout data, that little button down there is checked. That's checked. If I don't export layout data, I'm just exporting the design data that they originally gave to me. That really doesn't make a lot of sense. They already have that. I want to give them the exported layout data and save. And the file has saved successfully. Okay. Minimize this. Again, it's our exports. Right. It's going to have today's date on it. 5/17/12. Again, it's a WG CAD background that the CAD can take and really do whatever they want to with it. The other thing we can do is points. Okay, so we can pick a bunch of points. We can pick all the points. Again, I want to give it a file name. So, okay. if I would like. All right. Or I can clear all. Maybe I only want to select a amount of points, and maybe they're in a specific area. Okay. Well, to find all those points on this list is going to be kind of tedious. I can individually pick them, but I don't really know what points I'm picking. In the center, there's a little blue button with some arrows, kind of looks like a recycle. If I click on that, I can select those points from the actual model. Okay. Zoom extents. Let's say that I only want to export and zoom into this area right here. I only want to export most of those points that have been laid out with either the green check mark or the red X. So this button down here, which is window pick, but it window picks the points. So if I say I want to grab all of these points, it pops those points to my list. At this point, I can come over to that list and I can unselect the white circles, which basically is a point that hasn't been laid out. And then removed. Now I'm giving a point X file basically of all the points that I laid out. But I want design location, I want staked location, which is represented by those two little bullets down there. So I want to make sure I hit the staked location and save. I'll save successfully. Again, minimize the application. I go back to my Trimble Field Link, exports. I double click on that. I have a CSV file that has today's date on it. And then CAD can use whatever they want to get that back into their software. So nice little export functions there, and again, that was under Jobs and Export. Okay. Flip side, you want to open a job, Manage, and a list. In my case, again, it's going to be all of my contractors. It's going to be all the projects that you happen to be working on. So if I want to work on the practice job, I'm going to go to the appropriate folder, and I'm going to select the appropriate file, Basic Building Practice Points.tfl. Again, it's only looking for TFL, so if you have a CNX or an MEP in there, Jobber is what you're going to use to get those to .tfl. Basic Building Practice, I tell it to open. The file's been opened, great. You can't see it, but at the top, up around in here, it says link, and then it has the name of the file that happens to be open. All right. So file. Now I want to bring in a CAD background, so I'm going to say import. Again, it's just a matter of navigating to the folder that you want to use. And I've got some DWGs. I think go to John's folder here. He's got a DXF. I could bring that one if I wanted to. So this will read DWGs and DXFs as well. All right. I know though that this is the particular background that I want. But let's not sure. Let's say I pick Building Practice and I say import. All right. Well, it's telling me that it's been imported. Great. Well, what does it look like? How do I know it's correct? If I go to the main menu button and I go to Tools and I go to Compute, now I have some things. You see that my background file is either too big or points are really too small. They're down in the bottom left-hand corner. Into my points, I say, okay, well that looks somewhat familiar now, but what are my distances? Well, again, I've got my start point and my end point on the right-hand side. I can pick 2 points. It tells me it's 24 feet. Well, that's what they're supposed to be. So what's wrong with this file then? Well, my CAD background is too big. Okay. So in my case, I have the wrong CAD background. All right, I needed to grab this one instead of this one. In your case, you can call your CAD department and you can say, hey, the background file is too big. As you're just saying something's screwed up, I don't know what it is, fix it. Taking that measurement, you know that the points are correct, it's just the CAD file was too big. So you can give them a little bit more information as opposed to fix it, it's broke. So I say import at this point, bring in my correct CAD file. Again, I'm going to go over to Tools and Compute to verify that that is indeed correct. And in this case, it is. It brought in the correct CAD file, background file. Didn't talk about one button in here, and that's the I button. If I click on that, I can do an identification by clicking on a point name, the description if it had one, the that it's on, and then the design X, Y, and Z coordinates. Okay, if I want to see what a point looks like that's actually been laid out, if I click on one of these points, this point I have a green check mark. All right, name of the point, the description, the layer, the design location, and the as staked location. Once you make a point, it populates the as staked location. Okay, this one green check mark, which means I was within my tolerances that I set. In this case, if I click on a red one, well, it's out of tolerance. Okay, so that's what that one looks like. Again, whether it's staked, not staked, it's got data. See one more. Let me click on one of these buttons over here. Have some attributes associated with it. Attribute 1 is fire caulk, attribute number 2 is 6-inch pipe. This happens to be a wall penetration. Me is a 6-inch pipe going through the wall, and it needs to be fire caulked. Okay, so you can get some pretty relevant information out of the CAD model to the guys in the field simply by assigning it to specific points. I'll put an attribute number 3 in here. Maybe I need to oversize my core drill or by an inch. I could put that in as an attribute as well. So, you know, nice being able to assign some of that information. It cuts down on potential communication errors or just the flat-out lack of communication that results in some things getting put in incorrectly in the field. So, that's what that looks like. The ID button is a on-off toggle. You can see it turns, if it's on, it's highlighted in white. If it's off, it's just solid blue. Gear cog, I'm going to go back up to that one for a second. In the viewer, we only had the option to view the CAD layers. Okay. Well, when you're in the plan view, you've got the option not only for the plan layers, but also how you want to display your points. I believe you have the same options in the Nomad as well. Okay, so I can turn my layout flags off if I wanted to. However, now I don't know what points have not been staked. I like leaving that one on. Okay, descriptions. Well, maybe I don't use point descriptions and I only use elevations or layers. All right, so I can say, all right, let's turn the point descriptions off, and I'm going to be laying out a bunch of, but they're all going to be on the floor, so I don't need to see what the elevations are. Doing that, and out, I clean my drawing quite a bit. Now it's just showing the numbers. The numbers don't mean anything to me, but the point descriptions do. So it turns off and turn the point descriptions on. Now I know, oh, that's a sleeve, that's a hanger, that's a pad, that's a control point, so on and so forth. So you've got that similar functionality that you did with the Nomad and that little cog wheel. That's how you do it. My next ones that I have to show you guys are create data and these two. Create data is going to be probably the most involved one, but I'm going to go through it kind of quickly because it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a matter of just getting in there and playing with it. You're not going to break it. Just monkey around with it. So if I create a point pad, or if I offset a point, my first two buttons, one of the things that it's going to ask me is what layer do I want to put that on. Okay, if I haven't already established that layer, I'm going to have to put that point on an incorrect layer and then go back later and transfer it onto the right layer. So I actually start with Layer Manager. So from that, it brings up a list of all the layers that I have in my drawing. It's telling me with those check marks what type of information happens to be on that layer. So 4 layers, all I have on there are some points. Okay. That layer 0, that has points, line work, and CAD associated with it. And then these A- layers, which are CAD defaults, only have CAD on them, so on and so forth. Okay, giving me some information, letting me know layers have something associated with them. This layer doesn't have anything on it. Okay, practice has got some points on it. Well, let's to delete that layer. If I hit delete, you delete that layer, but there's some points on there, and you need to transfer those points to a separate layer before you can just delete that layer. That's a handy little in a screen, okay? Then I can't accidentally delete a whole bunch of points that I in fact need, okay? So I can delete that layer, but first I have to transfer those points onto a different layer. So I can put them on the door layer if I want to, or I can put them on the layer. Whatever I want to do, I put them on the wall layer and say OK. All right, so taking them off the practice and deleted that layer, and I put those points on the door layer. Well, when I get that layer back, well, I hit Add, upper right-hand corner, and just add a layer. Now, I've got an exclamation point in front of them. The reason is I don't want to have to search through the list with this scroll bar and figure out what layer that I want to use. Okay? If I'm doing work in the field, I put an exclamation point in front of my layer name. The reason why I bring this to the top is Windows basically reads symbols first, then numbers, then letters alphabetically. So that exclamation point in front of my layer that I create in the field, it does two things. One, it puts it at the beginning of the list so I don't have to go searching for it. And two, if I export stuff back to CAD, they can very clearly see what layers my points are on and what layers their original design points were on. And I don't have to go through with them and, okay, well, point number 17, 22, and 156 are this particular item, and I just don't have to do that. I can just say, hey, I put my door as-built stuff on the door layer, I put my windows or my walls on the wall layer. If I happen to shoot in my own field control points, I put those on my field control point layer, which is separate than the control point layer that you gave me. So that way that data can be kept separate and, more importantly, managed a lot easier. All right, edit a point. Click on this one and say edit. Maybe I wanted that to be a capital F instead of a small f. There we go. This button right here is my shift. So it adjusts that to capital letters for one button. It pops it back down. The other button, this one here, is all caps locks. So that's what that button is. And again, play with these things. I can get symbols. Bottom right-hand corner of this keyboard will kick me to more of a type keyboard. I can get back to the alpha by clicking the alpha button. Also, a typer, and I could care less what keys are on the keyboard as far as the QWERTY layout goes. I can hit the ABC, and that puts into an ABC keyboard. That one drives me crazy, but some really like that. So either way, you've got some functionality there. That's pretty much it. I can simply transfer points from one layer to another too. I can say, you know what, I want to transfer those points back onto that practice layer. So I can say, go practice. I can put those points custom how I need to. Okay. That manager. Sorry. Main create data. That layer manager. The next one is point manager. Similar to manager, except now we're not dealing with layers, we're dealing with points. Okay. Our points list, it shows us what points have or have not been laid out. All right. I can add a point, but I need to know the X, Y, and Z elevation or coordinates of that. So again, this is where you get in trouble if the surveyor got northing and easting. Well, if you punch those in X and Y, you may not get the results you want. But if you add a point in, give it a description, pick the one on the list, and punch in its coordinates for you. I can edit a point. So if I select the point and edit it, it will edit the name, maybe edit the description. Maybe I don't want that S on the end. There we go. I can edit the X, Y, and Z. Be careful doing that. It was designed that way for a reason. On a different layer and say, okay, maybe the elevation needs to change from 6 foot to 8 foot. So I can do that. All right. So you've got the functionality to change some things in the field if you need to do so. I can delete this point, but it gives me a warning. Are you sure you want to delete this point? No, I'm not sure. I don't want to delete it. I can clear all. That doesn't clear my list. It just clears the stuff that I have highlighted. Okay, so if I accidentally picked one or didn't need it, I can hit clear all. But as I select them, it tells me on the right-hand side how many points I have selected. So clear again. What if I want to know where these 4 wall penetrations are on the plan? Okay, I see them on the list. That's great, but where are they on the plan? On the again, if I hit that little blue recycle type button, it's to the plan. Here, if I zoom this area with the window, it's highlighted these points with people around them. Okay. While I'm in plan view, I can just as easily select a bunch of points as well. Okay. As I go to my list, it's telling me, okay, I've got 10 selected so far, 11, so on and so forth. I can go back to my view by hitting the recycle button. And then if I need to, I can scroll through and find where those are on the so on and so forth. I can sort my list by layer as opposed to name. I can flip it back into plan view, hit zoom extents. I can still hit clear all. So all my buttons on the right are working the same way. It's just a matter of personal preference how you want to see that data. So that's point here. The next one is offset points. Okay. This one, I like. You can be very, very precise with this thing. So, for example, I can do points on the tab at the top. The tab you cannot see says single, so multiple and single. The CAD department gives me a control point at the intersection of each of the columns, which I highly recommend if they're not doing that they do that. Or you can say, all right, well, I've got points at the center of all columns, but there's a point down here. If I zoom into this one, control point 24, I physically can't get to the center of the column on the job site, and that's okay. But if I were to just say, oh, we're always going to offset our points 3 foot to the side, well, if on the side that they offset to there's some supplies in the way and you can't get to that point, the ability to decide which point you want to offset that point to. So I'm going to zoom a little bit. I'm going to focus on control point 24. That's going to be my start point. So I'm going to pick it, colors it blue, populates my box with point number 24. Then my point, I want that to be point number 21. It's a line between the two. And now I go down to distance, horizontal offset, vertical offset. By distance, I'm 3 foot off of that column. Feet. And okay, well, there's where your point is going to be. All right, I can do horizontal offset if I want. Maybe I also want to go 3 feet to the right. To the left. Okay, so I've got a left-right box. I can say right. I can also do a vertical offset. If I want that point to be 1 foot off the ground for whatever reason, I could do that. Okay, that's not what I want. I want it to be 0. But I'll offset it 3 foot up and 1 foot to the right. I need to gain. So this one is the next available point in the list. I can also call this FCP1 for Field Control Point 1. Give it a description. Field control point if I wanted to. And better making sure I put it on the appropriate area and tell it to create. All right, so FCP1, elevation is 0 feet. Point. Now, multiple points. So in the single tab, if I click over to the multiple tab, very, very similar. Okay, start at FC4 and go up to whatever point that is, column 2. Maybe I want a point Every 2 feet from that line, I've got a point. Well, maybe I want to offset it horizontally to the left. So I'll say I want to go 4 feet to the left. Okay. That's going to be some anchor supports for a line of pipe. So I need to do a vertical offset and to be 10 feet from the floor. Tell it. Starts with point 19. I'm okay with that. I am going to give it a description of hanger. Okay. And then there that I want to put it on my duct hanger layer. Okay. And boom, it's created a whole bunch of points. If I zoom in a little bit so you can see those a little bit better, it tells me what number it is, the description, and feet 5 inches off of the floor. So everything gets left out on CAD side of things, and you know how far off of one column line or another that particular run of pipe or duct or whatever it is happens to be. You can simply create your own points, and in a pinch, keep working. Keep in mind you do need 2 points to start with in order for it to figure out that reference line. All right, that's the point. That's offset points. You can get some data from CAD. So I click. Now, all right. Well, on the upper right-hand corner, again, we've got that little graphic, but it's covering up a button that says endpoint. So endpoint, midpoint, center, node, initiation, and intersection. Okay, this is where the CAD file comes into play. This recognize simple CAD geometry. I'm talking about lines, arcs, circles. Okay, it doesn't like blocks and it doesn't like X references. All right, it will recognize them, but more often than not, it puts 1 point at the insertion point of that block or that X reference. Okay? It really doesn't do you a whole lot of good if that block is to be a square equipment pad. Let's only give you 1 point. So for the CAD background file, make it really simple. Simple lines, geometry, keep it simple, and then you'll be able to use it more on the tablet side of things. So, for instance, if I pick center, okay, it's going to scan my drawing and figure out where all the possible center points could possibly be. Have to have some down here. That's supposed to be a grid, but if I pretend that's a sleeve, it recognizes that circle, and if I pick on the screen where that circle is, it says, oh, okay, I recognize that as the center of that circle, and now I give it a name, a description, and then a layer. Now I can leave it from CAD. I can put it on whatever layer that I want to. I'm going to leave it from CAD and tell it to create. And I created 3 points very quickly based off of that CAD geometry. Okay. I can undo circle and do a midpoint if I want to. Actually, I'm not going to do midpoint. I'm going to do endpoint. Right. So if I pick endpoint, now it's again, it's a matter of picking where endpoints of some lines may be. Now I'm kind of limited here. I don't. It recognized that column. Now, if you remember, that column was a 3D object. It recognized a 3D object. What it's actually picking up is the square that's drawn on the floor. So I've got 2 pieces of objects in there. It won't recognize the 3D object. Again, they consider that a block, but it will recognize the geometry that I have drawn on the floor. So just keep in mind when you're creating those CAD background files. So in this description, maybe I want to call it corners. It doesn't really matter. Hit create, and then boom, populates all your points. So again, you've got some functionality based on the CAD geometry as far as how you want to create some points. Okay. Again, I encourage you, go in there, muck around with it, figure out what works, what doesn't. Say that back to the CAD department. Layout and collect data. Now, I can try and go into these buttons, but as soon as I hit set up instrument, it's going to tell, well, you're not connected. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is I connect to the instrument to my. All right, so I turn my robot on here. I've got one sitting on my desk, and I've leveled it, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty bad because I don't think my desk is very level. So with that being said, the top right-hand corner, we've got those 4 buttons. The one that you really can't see is the robot control panel, or the instrument control panel. So I'm going to click on that one, and now open up the instrument control panel. This is I like to read it like a newspaper. Start in the upper left-hand corner and work my way down, and that way I don't forget anything. I don't forget to check something, I don't forget to verify something, so on and so forth. So under connection, it's the first thing that I can start with. Now, all these other ones are grayed out. Level and temp, target, benchmark, they do not become available until I establish the robot positions on the job site or shooting the control points, okay? The first thing I need to start off with is the model of the robot. Now, we've some options, so depending on what robot you happen to have, that model that you want to pick. To have a and what I want to use is going to be video. I have 2 things that I need to do. Now I need to set my channel and my work ID, and it's just a matter of clicking the caret and basically figuring out what mine happens to be set at. So this one would be 16 and 30 because I was using it just a couple days ago. So 16 and 30, okay, so there they are. If I needed to change it, again, click on the caret, pull down through whatever you needed it to be, select that number, and good to go, okay? So every time it's going to ask you what robot you want to use, but it will remember what channel and network ID you set it to. So you don't have to adjust that every single time. You just have to say, I want to use a 655, and I want to make sure that my connect mode is going to be radio. Once I decide that, I connect, and now it's going to connect to the robot. Okay, until it's connecting, then it's initializing the instrument, and then it's got its full connection. It's back to that main screen, but it's going to hop down to level and temp. Okay, and it's going to how good of a job I did. Let that thing up. What this is telling me is that it says, well, I've connected to the robot, and it says that, well, this is past its service date. That's no, we recommend you get these things serviced once a year. I'm going to tell it okay. It'll its connection. I'm within 20 seconds on the sighting and 0 on the trunnion. Good. I want to be 30 or less on the sighting and trunnion. 30 seconds less. So you've got degrees, minutes, and seconds. What you're seeing here is minutes and seconds. Again, you want to be 30 less. Okay? Now, up to that connection, you'll notice before I was on the connection tab, connected, it jumped me down to level and temp. I go back up to the connection. That's where I can check my instrument battery. The robot battery has 74% life left in it, and service due. Okay, that's where that menu or that little warning message came up from. I've got this chart that says notify me 1 week prior to my robot needing servicing. Okay, again, I recommend sending that thing in, getting it cleaned, calibrated, any firmware that needs to be updated. They take care of all that for you. It's about a 5 to 7 business day process. If you need a loaner in the meantime, your sales guy can facilitate that for you. So, but again, something that I just wanted to show you. This is your instrument battery is, and then that's where that message came from. I've checked notify 1 week prior. Back to level and temp. Okay, so this one we're basically just verifying some things. We're making sure that we leveled this thing up properly. Again, 30 seconds or less, and then the temperature. Okay, you can hit the temperature box and say, no, I think it's 71 in here. Okay, temperature wants to be, you want that to be within about 10 degrees of your working temperature. So if it's cold in the morning, as it's to warm up, set it. Okay, that's something that's going to help that barometer. Remember that pressure that it reads set, but we can't do anything with it. Well, the only thing we really can do with it is tell it the proper temperature outside. Doesn't have to be perfect, just be close. You don't want it to say 80 degrees if it's 30 degrees outside. So just keep that in mind. The nice thing about it is if I close out this window, over here and I'm in the model viewer, or it doesn't matter. If I click on that robot button again, I think it's 7, and then I close this out. It takes me back to where I was at. So it's pretty convenient. It only takes literally about 5 seconds to click into that, change the temperature, and then get back out of it. So I recommend keeping that temperature within about 10 degrees of your daily working temperature. Right, the next one down, so we verified the temperature, and the next one down is target. This one's easy. Figure out what target type you have, whether you have the 360, whether you add the target ID to it. If you do need to tell it some additional information, hey, I want to use it at all times, and I'm on number 3, channel number 3. Okay? So again, I'm going to turn that off and go back to the 360, or happen to have the new MT1000. It's either passive or active mode. If you're in active mode, then you need to tell it you're on whatever specific channel you happen to be on. Okay? The next part of this is it gives you a little picture. If the picture does not match what you're using, you need to go in and change it. The thing here is height. If you the rod height, you need to let it know in here. If you switch it to 5 feet, tell it. If you switch it to 4 feet and 3/8 of an inch, 7.375 inches, you need to let it know. Okay? That's very important because that's how it figures out a lot of its trigonometry. I'm going to switch it back to 6 foot because that's a pretty standard operating height. Doesn't matter what it is, just make sure that it matches what your prism pole is set to. Okay? So action set up, we verified the level and our temperature, we verified our target with our right height. Now we can hop over to the right side of this control panel and take a look at some of those buttons. Okay? What's the most is you've got that little joystick type operation. Okay, the arrows on the inside are going to make that robot spin slow. On the outside, make him spin fast. Okay, up and down the same way. Target, you have 2 options. You're either in prism mode or you're either in laser mode. You'll notice when I switch it to laser mode, it doesn't ask me what type of target type I'm using. It doesn't matter. I'm using the laser, so that's basically why it switches that over. Automatically gets turned off in laser mode, and it gets turned on. Now you can turn it off in prism mode, although I don't know why you would want to do that because then he won't follow you around the job site. Track light, I recommend working with that on all the time. It's a great visual aid for you as the operator. And in M mode, you can switch from standard to tracking. Now, I believe you've had all of these options on the Nomad. They looked a little bit different, but they work exactly the same. Search window, horizontal, vertical. In this case, you have 3 options, 15, 30, and 60 degrees. When you switch, the closer you are to the robot, use 60. The farther away you are, use 15. Use track light to get that robot looking as close as you can, and then hit search. Okay. So in this case, I have a prism in here. All I have is the laser in the robot. But this is pretty much my instrument control panel. Had I had a prism, at this point I'd hit search. He'd go ahead and find me. All right. So close that out because I've got him set up, connected. He's ready to basically shoot in some control points. All right. So with that said, I'm going to go to the menu. The layout, and I instrument. Now this doesn't mean connect instrument. That's what we just did. We just connected the instrument. This wants us to set up the instrument or shoot in control points. I'll click on that button, and now it says, okay, here's your plan on the left, and you need to pick a point on basically that you want to shoot in first. All right. So I'm gonna have to wing this because I don't have any control points set up in my pretty much 8 foot by 11 foot office here. So zoom into this area. Okay, all right, let me shoot in, I'm right here. So it says selected point number 16 on the right. Now it's just a matter of going in to shoot that. Now, since I don't have a prism, I use the laser. So I'm going to hit that robot instrument control panel at the top. It's going to be into where my robot, my instrument control panel. I'm going to hit the prism and turn it to laser. so I turn the laser on. I go back. Now take it back to where I was, and so it's just a matter of pointing that laser on and say shoot. Recorded that shot, and now it says, all right, what's point number 2? All right, say point number 2 is going to be, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. 2 is going to be this one right here. No, we're going to shoot that one in. And so I'm just going to point it over there and say shoot. Remember, it wasn't very level. I goofed. I'll get this thing back into level, hopefully. Get him close. If you're on job site and someone picks up your robot and moves it, that's the message you're also going to get as well. We're close. This is by no means going to be perfect, but again, I'm just shooting at nonsensical points on my wall anyway. So good. It takes me back to where I was at. Okay, I don't have to monkey around with getting back into or whatnot. So I'm back to where I was. I got point 20. I'm going to say shoot. What it's telling me is this. My on the plan, and he says, okay, there's the 2 points that you shot in. The quality was poor, and the instrument position is with 4 7/8 of an inch. So I prized them out a couple feet, but you get the idea. Now, obviously, if I was on a job site, this would by no means be acceptable. But quite honestly, if I was on the job site, I would have had some pretty solid references to go to. My is really based on the distance. So the farther away you are from the robot and the control points, the better your quality gets. And then the instrument is within down there at the bottom. You want to make sure that that's right on the money. 0 inches, 6, 7 inch. I mean, it all depends on what you're willing to accept. But I'm going to go ahead and accept because this is just a demo. Because we had take me to the benchmark option check marked, okay, it's right back into the instrument control panel. It says, hey, you need to measure a benchmark, all right? Well, in this case, I'm going to point it at my floor. And my floor is, so instead of feet, I'm going to click on that box. And my floor is 0. Okay. 0 feet, 0 inches, and then I just say measure. All right, so it's got a measurement, and it's going to say, okay, now I know where the floor is based on what you just told me, okay? Now, you don't have to do that. It's just a good habit to get into because the time that you don't benchmark is the time that you lay out a whole bunch of points incorrectly. So, but go back into the settings, and again, now that it says check mark by use benchmark elevation, I can close out, hit the menu, go back over to settings. I don't want to benchmark after every time, so I can uncheck that and go back to my main menu, and I can go to layout, and I've set up the instrument, so this time I'm going to go to points. All right, again, starting to see a theme here. We got the map on the left, we've got our points list on the right. Now what you can't see is it's got point tab and then it's got the layout tab. Okay, so notice visibly the graphics visibly change from my list. Okay, so this is kind of a two-step process. The first step is getting my points list. I'm actually going to clear this list out. Okay, and I want you to notice a couple things on the map side. Our robot established his position on the job site, which is nice, okay, because if I set that up and I look and I see, well, he should be in that area and he's not, maybe I didn't do something right. But so you've got visual aid there, and you see it kind of the upper left-hand corner, you see a little red bullseye. That's where my laser's pointing. Okay, I move that laser as well. All right, moves wherever I'm pointing him to. It does the same thing with the prism. Okay, the prism will show up as a red bullseye and it'll follow you around. Okay, the point is, I need to create some points. So let's say, for example, that I want to lay out that equipment pad. Well, I can do a couple things. I put points individually from the plan. So I can clear the list. I can use this little window button with the points in it. My window pick to grab them. Okay, whatever I do, that's basically how it works. Now these points have obviously been laid out, but I lay out them again. Let's say, for example, that I want to lay out. I'm going to click, and I'm going to this area. Okay, but I want to lay out the green points, so I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to take those off of my list. By hitting that little blue X, I remove it from my list. So now I've got a list created. Again, you can skin that cat. Just get that list created. I want to reshoot these in because I got red X's and I want to get green check marks, right? So I created my list. Now I need to go to that tab in the upper right that you can't see, which is lock. Okay? So as I go to that point, I pick the point that I want to start with, and now it gives me directions. Forward 6 feet, right 2 feet, up 4 feet. Okay? Like your Nomad did. It's going to give you the directions as to which way you need to go. And based on where you're standing, obviously. So but let's say that, you know what, I don't want to start with that point. I actually want to start with this point right here. I can pick the plan and start with that point. I don't necessarily have to pick it from the list. Okay? That's that. Now, if I hit visual layout, that's how I turn the laser taking ability on, and I tell it to aim, and then it'll go ahead and search for that particular spot. And it'll take a measurement, and it probably isn't going to do it because I really weird setting this thing up. Oh, I got it. It's basically telling me it's 5 feet too low, but there. Okay. So remember that little red button I was talking about on the side of the tablet? If that actually work, because it doesn't know if I want to go next or nearest. I'll say store nearest.
Observation stored.
And you can hear my tablet talking, and then it gives you your little bullseye that says you're money, and then I can say, all right, let me go to the next point and aim point, and so on and so forth. I'm going to hit cancel because I don't need to really bore you through that because you can't see where my laser is pointing to. But yeah, the bullseye shows up when you are within 3 feet of the point. If my laser farther than 3 feet away, it goes back to the map view. Okay, so it's close. It's close. You're within 3 feet. I'm going to this view, and so on and so forth. Now, you've got that recycle button down at the bottom in the middle. If you like this, you can see it, or versa. If you're 3 feet away and you want to see that bullseye, you can click on that. It's still giving you the same directions. On the right side in that little bar, it's telling you either you're low or you're high. So scoot up. Telling me the elevation that I'm at. Even though I'm ignoring my Z, it's still telling me what that is. Okay? That's under layout. That's under points. Okay? You can do work. However, this one. Basically what this wants you to do, it's very similar to offsetting points. It wants you to pick a start point and an end point, and then an interval, and then an offset, and so on and so forth. The nice thing about it, though, is that it's visual. So if I pick a start point and an end point, and I have interval distance, maybe do 6 feet, whatever, it shows you on here, actually interval set at 6 inches. I want my interval set at 6 feet. It shows you on the map what it's doing. Right, left, both. You can create a bunch of points very quickly. Now this just lays these out. It doesn't necessarily record them as data. So it's kind of like layout on a line for the Nomad, but not the same. So play with it. The nice thing about it is it shows you what it's doing before you say accept or layout or what have you. Okay. This one is wall penetrations. Again, I can't really show that one to you, but basically what it wants me to do is it wants me to pick 2 points. I can pick start point and an end point, and how it's going to work, but then it tells it to aim. So aim, and try and figure out where that particular point happens to be, except this one isn't going to work because it's right in the corner of my office. So again, me setting it up kind of goofy is hard to demonstrate some of these things. Layout, wall penetrations, line work, so on and so forth. The last one I have to show you is collect data. Setup instrument, we've already done that, so we can skip that step. We can do points, something. Again, laser on, so I can just point that laser at my doorknob, for example. So I'll point it on, and I've got my door has already been selected. The important thing on this one is store design point. If you don't store the design point and you say measure, it records as a black dot. Okay? Use it. I can see it, and it tells me information about it, but if I wanted to lay that point out again or come back to that point, I would not be able to do it. I check mark store design point, and I'll just adjust this just a little bit so you can see the difference. And say measure.
Stored.
Now, that happens to be, let me get my bullseye off of it, be a point that I can use and lay out and stake out and so on and so forth. So store design point, very important. Always make sure you have that one checked. If you don't want to use the point, no big deal. But if you do, you don't have that checked, you're out. The last one I'm going to show you is line work. This one's kind of cool. All right, if I zoom out, I can as-built a wall with this one, and I can do line and just putting in my wall points. So it's just a matter of giving it a name, description, putting it on the proper layer. In this case, I'm going to put it on the wall layer so it makes sense to the CAD people. I want a line as opposed to an arc, but if I did have an arc, I could take a few shots along that arc. It will line a line arc for me. So I'm just going to start by taking some points. Okay.
Information stored.
Right there. I have this kind of loud. Sorry, guys. I'll go to the other corner and measure.
Upward.
I'll go to the back corner. My stupid desk. A little bit. You can see, take points, it's actually connecting them with a line, which is kind of handy for the CAD guys. They don't have to ask me too many questions if I have a room that's not perfectly square. If it's here and there, a little bit better. You also have the ability to connect to a specific point. So let's say you had to do a couple different setups to record that wall outline. You can connect it to the last point that you used, set it back up, and then continue again. So, play with this stuff. The create data, you're not going to break it. If you create a point that you don't want, just come into point and delete it. You or monkey around with it. Tools and compute. We'll use that one. But I think just play with it, when in the office, shoot some as-built type stuff in, set it up, take it down a couple times before you're out on the job site and pull your hair, because you got to get 100 points laid out in an hour or whatever. So that's pretty much it. You guys have any questions for me? I know I want to say I blew through them really fast, but I probably could have gone into some more detail. But all that too is going to be you guys just getting in there and playing it with yourselves. You can watch me hit buttons all day long, but until you do it, that's most of the time when the real questions come up. So, but with that said, any questions for me?
Like a external monitor or projector?
Station for the tablet, you can do that.
The files to 1/12 the size?
Great question. Will scale the drawings down if the is set to unitless. Okay. So with the CAD side of things, if you in the AutoCAD command line, if you type in units, it's going to do what you're using, like feet and inches or metric or so on and so forth. However, there's a separate command called DD units. D is in Delta. So this needs to be set to unitless. Okay. This file as a DD or DXF, then bring it in and it will scale that drawing down. Key is you need to go to DD units and you make sure that it is set to unitless as opposed to, I believe the default in CAD is inches, and now that depends on how you set up your CAD software, but D units is the name of that command. Type it in.
But if we decide to do that, you just scale it down by a 12th at 000 again?
It depends on how units are set. So if those units are not set to use, then you have to scale it down. And really the only way to tell is to just test the file out and see. But it can start driving you crazy because you'll scale it, so it'll be too big and you'll scale it down by a 12th. And then you'll bring it in and the tablet will scale it down by another 12th. So I really highly recommend making sure that that background file, and it doesn't have to be your main model that you're working in, do a save as, project-background, and there, set unit list, save, and then you can just dump that straight into the tablet. So, scaling it down by a 12th, but it really all depends on what that units is set to.
All right. Or when we get to a TFL, can we do that from the pipe and the design link?
Yes. So the pipe designer and the design link will both export to a .tfl. They also give the ability to export a DWG or DXF as well. I don't like using that. I like to control my own CAD background, so I'll create that one separately. But yeah, you can export. Now, that's got the most recent 2012 release. In some other releases, you'll have to send it out as a .MEP file, and then from there you can use that file converter that I showed you. I'll make this one right here, and then convert it. But if you have the recent versions, the 2012 versions of TDL and also Pipe Designer, yeah, you can export straight to a .tfl and skip this whole file conversion altogether.
Eric, what's the file size that it will read for as a DWG?
Size it'll read, I mean, it'll read something up to 10 and 12 megabytes, but the processor comes into play at that point. This is by no means a CAD machine, so it's not going to have the same amount of RAM and whatnot. File size, it really depends on how clean your file is. If it's simple lines, there's no duplicates, handle a bigger file size. And try and keep it right around 5 megabytes or less. It depends on how much stuff you've audited and purged out of your CAD background, depending on how big the file size. To me, it's not so much a file size as it is a speed issue. I don't care how big the file is, I just want it to run as the speed that it's supposed to. So, but I guess if I was to put a limit on it, I'd say 5 megabytes or less is probably going to give you optimal performance. Anything higher than that, you're going to see some speed reduction. Now, that's getting in and out of navigating through the windows. When you're just laying out points, it doesn't have to really think about what that background file is doing, so you don't really notice any speed issue there. It's kind of loading things in and computing and that kind of thing that you notice more of the bigger file size slowing it down a little. Hopefully I didn't put you guys to sleep too bad. Like I say, start with that thing. You don't like it unless you drop it. So don't drop it. Just hit the buttons, see what it does. You know, try stuff out, and I'm sure you guys will have questions. But you got my contact info. Do I need to bring that screen back up again? I just will anyway. And then contact. So again, if you didn't get a chance to write it down before, the 0 is my cell phone, the 3 is going to be the tech support here at the office, and my email address. So, you know, shoot a message, give me a call, and I'll try and answer it as quickly as I can. Like I say, I'm training a lot, so sometimes I can't get to you to the end of the day, but I do return my phone calls and my emails. So, last chance. Any more questions? Okay. Well, and like I say, if you got anything else, just give me a shout, or tech support's always there for you too. Thanks a lot.